Notre Dame fans, welcome to a special edition of the Irish Breakdown podcast. My name is Brian Driscoll. I'm the publisher at irishbreakdown.com. We're going to skip the intro tonight because Justyn Rhett is already on the screen and talking, so we're going to go right to that. So everybody make sure you let me know that you can hear once I got that up.
Player is a prospective school getting out of you?
I'd like to say that they get a physical corner, they get a strong-minded kid. I just dedicated to the game and dedicated.
Can everybody hear him?
Coach puts in front of me.
Justyn, what's this moment mean for you, having your family there alongside as you make this announcement? Of course, we'll get to the announcement in a moment, but what is it meant to have your family with you throughout this process?
It means everything. They're the ones that make me do what I do and push me to be the man I am today. So it really means a lot to me.
All right, Justyn, sit tight. We'll get to your announcement in a moment. Let's bring in Steve Wiltfong, 24/7 Sports Director of Recruiting, because we got to know a little bit more about Justyn.
All right, I'm back. We're gonna have this muting problem tonight. So this is a big This is a big potential commitment for Notre Dame. Obviously, Justyn has to announce his decision, but this is a kid that visited Notre Dame this summer. They had a really, really deep board. Notre Dame was after a lot of top cornerbacks in this class, and he was not. Can you guys hear me now? Can you hear me now? Can everybody hear me? Can you guys hear me? Because I'm getting a lot of people saying that I'm muted, but my mic's not showing I'm muted. So, okay. All right. So, anyway, he visited this summer, and it was interesting. Notre Dame had a deep board of corners. They got in on a lot of top corners early, and A.J. Harris, Malik Muhammad, a lot of guys like that. Justyn Rhett was a guy the staff liked, but he didn't get a chance to play as a sophomore because of COVID and Nevada not playing. So they didn't really know a lot about him. They liked his size and some of the measurables, but he was not a guy that was necessarily high on their board. He came in this summer and worked out for Notre Dame, did a great job, ran a 4.4, like in the 4.4 range, which was one of the questions about him because he's like a bigger corner, and did a really good job. And from then on, he became a top target for Notre Dame. And they've been on him ever since. And now, obviously, Alabama's after him. Georgia's after him. He also worked out at Alabama about a less than 2 weeks after he worked out at Notre Dame, and then got an offer from them as well. So this is a kid that earned his scholarship offers at the places he's going to. So so that's obviously a big part of where he is at. So and we're not going to go back to the coverage right now because they're on a commercial. We'll go back to the coverage when he's ready to make his decision and the kid starts talking again. So what he did at camp is obviously testing drills. He ran a 40. He went through position drills, just worked out, competed at the camp, and did a really, really, really good job. And immediately shot up to the sort of in the top part of their list, along with A.J. Harris and Malik Muhammad and all those kind of players. So he's a guy that earned that top spot. And then, of course, came out as a junior, had a really good junior season, and that sort of solidified what the staff felt of him because he was a guy that, again, had earned an offer from camp, but you still needed to see it during the season. Obviously, Bishop Gorman plays a good schedule, so he was able to go out there and sort of back up in the season what he did in the summer camp. So this is a guy that Notre Dame staff has coveted for a while. He is ranked as the number 50 overall player in the country according to Rivals. He is ranked as the number 64 overall player in the country according to ESPN. It's a very talented player. I'm going to pull some stuff up here real quick. We'll put him back up.
Justyn Rhett, the top 100 player overall in the class.
Justyn Rhett, number
55 overall in the ESPN class of 2023, a 4-star recruit.
And in a short time here at Gorman, he's grown tremendously. He went from a stick figure into an Iron Man and has completely shifted the mold of what a Bishop Gorman corner should look like and play like. You won't find anybody more hungry than him, a kid that grinds before school in the gym.
He's one of those guys that was so competitive. You know, I seen him on the front, you know, when he was as a freshman, and you could see the potential in the kid, you know. So once he came up to varsity, you could tell that he wanted to be great, you know. So he's up on the rise. I think that, you know, sky's the limit for the kid, and I do possibly think that he could be one of the greatest to ever be here at Bishop Gorman.
Motivated by my parents that have been raised with nothing given, I'm blessed to have this opportunity that millions of kids dream of. This path I choose for the next 4 years will put my family and I in a great position for me to continue this game of football. First off, I'd like to thank the man above for giving me a chance to play this game. I'd like to thank my family, my brothers, coaches, and every coach who believed in me and gave me a chance during this recruiting process.
Here we go. We now welcome back 4-star corner Justyn Rhett. It's the moment we've all been waiting for. The stage is yours, Justyn. Where will you be playing college football in 2023?
I'd like to pursue my talents at the University of Notre Dame.
There it is.
Yeah.
There it is. That was instant. No doubt about it. Justyn Rhett headed to South Bend to play for Marcus Freeman and the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. What a moment for him and his family there, announcing his commitment live here on CBS Sports HQ. Justyn, as you allow this moment to sink in, what was it about Notre Dame that stood out to you over the other schools?
The first day I approached the campus, it was this special feeling I had about it. And it was only a matter of time until I got to build the relationships with the coaches that I have today for me to be ready to commit somewhere. And I know that Notre Dame is the right place for me.
How excited are you right now to be going to play for Marcus Freeman? I mean, look, if I was a high school kid right now and I was being recruited by Marcus Freeman, I'd be running through a brick wall for that guy. I mean, what an absolute, it's a blessing to go play for that guy. And now you get the chance. What does that mean to you?
It means a lot to me, knowing that Marcus Freeman himself and Coach Nickens were the ones who recruited me to the school. So I got to build good relationships with them, and just can't wait.
The moment certainly surreal. Congrats on your decision. Before I let you go, tell all the Fighting Irish fans what type of player they're going to be getting once you step foot on campus.
They're going to be getting a great player. I'm dedicated to the Irish now, so I'm going to turn it up.
There we go. Justyn Rhett headed to Notre Dame. I love it. I love the emotion from your family. Such a special moment. Thanks for joining us here on CBS Sports HQ.
There it is. Notre Dame has picked up a commitment from 2023 cornerback Justyn Rhett from Bishop Gorman in Las Vegas. Notre Dame has not gotten a kid from Bishop Gorman in a while, so it's nice to see Notre Dame get back in there. And I'll tell you, the interesting thing I kind of saw from that video, and we're seeing this a lot, is there's a lot of positive vibes, a lot of positive really momentum for Notre Dame, not just with what Notre Dame is doing, but just from how they're being perceived, how they're being discussed. You know, we don't often see Notre Dame, you know, somebody just put in the super chat. I love this. J-Man is the media turning pro Notre Dame. They are for now, but trust me, there's going to, as soon as they get a chance to kind of turn on Notre Dame, they will. But this is a big one. This is a big one, obviously, for Notre Dame. This is a kid that meets a need. And by that, I mean, Notre Dame had a need for a impact corner in this class, right? And they signed 4 cornerbacks in 2021, Ryan Barnes, Philip Riley, Chance Tucker, JoJo Johnson. They've got commitments from 2 in the, well, really kind of 2.5 in the 2022 class in Benjamin Morrison and Jaden Mickey, 2 very talented players right now. Devin Moore is not in the class. Got an update on him on the message board that, you know, there's a lot of work to do there for Notre Dame. Jaden Bellamy is also kind of a corner hybrid safety nickel kind of guy, not a pure corner. So the fact that you've signed 6 corners in the last 2 classes put Notre Dame in a position where heading into 2023, it was all about impact. And when you look at the board that the staff has put together, and we'll get into that here in a little bit, it was high-level guys. There was no messing around with the guy that they think might be okay. It was like guys that have big-time talent. And certainly Justyn Rhett was part of that group, and they made a push for him the moment he worked out. Somebody asked about the last time they got someone from Bishop Gorman. I believe the last time they got someone from Bishop Gorman was Alize Mack. I believe was the last person from Bishop Gorman to sign with Notre Dame. So this is a big pickup for Notre Dame, and I wore my gap closer shirt for a reason, because I believe Justyn Rhett is that kind of player. We'll dive into the film a little bit. He's got some work to do, obviously, with a lot of kids that are in the junior class. They missed their sophomore year because of COVID, and so he's still a guy that is evolving and developing as a player. But the tools are there. The tools are there. And so this certainly fits a need for Notre Dame, getting that kind of impact player. The other thing this does is this is commitment number 7 for Notre Dame in the 2023 class. This is commitment number 5 on defense. Notre Dame has obviously Keon Keeley at defensive end. They have Brennan Vernon at defensive end. They have Drake Bowen at linebacker. They have Adon Schuler at safety. Now Justyn Rhett at corner. The interesting thing about this commitment is this means Notre Dame now, 4 of their 5 defensive commits are guys that are ranked in the top 50 by at least one recruiting service. And obviously Adon Schuler is a guy that's ranked in the top 150 by some. So this defensive class for Notre Dame is off to a tremendous start so far. So certainly big for Notre Dame to have such a great start. It just kind of adds to the excitement about what Marcus Freeman is building. When you look at the current senior class, right? So you look at the 2022 class, very, very strong defensive haul, arguably the best linebacker haul in the country, in my opinion. It is the best, but I think, at least leave it open to some conversation about it, right? Some other people. I think it's the best in the country. You look at the defensive line class, you got 2 top 150 caliber players in Tyson Ford and Aiden Gabbera. I have Tyson Ford as a top 100 player. I have Aiden Gabbera just outside, sort of like 100 to 150, but a very high ceiling, both of them 5-star upside guys. And then a corner, I'm very high on Benjamin Morrison. As anybody that's been on this channel for a while knows, love Benjamin Morrison. Big time talent. Jaden Mickey's another kid I like a lot. He's going up and up and up in the rankings. And then, of course, you have Jaden Bellamy, who's sort of a jack of all trades kind of guy. So 2022 defensive class was very good. They needed to have Donovan Heinisch also at nose tackle, defensive tackle. That's obviously a big one. And then now you look at 2023. And so when you recruit the kind of class Notre Dame landed in 2022, you look at 2023 and you say, okay, how can we complement that class? Okay. And you look at, okay, so what are our needs from a number standpoint? Do we need impact players? Do we need a certain skill set? Those type of things. And then the other thing that coaches always do is, hey, look, you always want to make sure this next class is even better than the one you had before. And certainly Notre Dame is off to a great start when it comes to doing that with 2023. As good as 2022 is, 2023 so far is off to an even better start than what last year's class was. The other thing is, when you really think about what Marcus Freeman has done from a recruiting standpoint in less than a year right now, it is really impressive. I mean, you're talking about Notre Dame right now. This commitment jumps Notre Dame up to number 1 in the recruiting rankings according to Rivals. They are top 5 in the 2022 class, and a lot of it is built around what we've seen on defense. Now, Tommy Rees has done some really good things on offense, receiver and running back, and the offensive line class is now really good. But the defensive class is really what carries the 2022 class. And so far, it's definitely carrying the 2023 class, 5 commits to 2. And it's high-level commits. I mean, when you think about it, since Marcus Freeman was hired 11 months ago, right, they have gotten to Tyson Ford, Aiden Gabbera, Donovan Heinisch, Jalen Sneed, Josh Burnham, Junior Tuihalamaka, Benjamin Morrison, Jaden Mickey, Jaden Bellamy, Keon Keeley, Brennan Vernon, Adon Schuler, Drake Bowen. I mean, it is, and now Justyn Rhett. This is a big time. This is big time. So it really has seen a huge jump in recruiting. And I loved what Tommy Rees said in the interview. If you have not listened to the interview Tommy Rees did with Ryan Russillo the other day. We have it on our message board. You got to check it out. It was really, really good. And he talked about how the what Marcus has done on the recruiting trail has kind of been a challenge to Tommy. Like, hey, he's doing a great job. I need to raise my game and match that. And that's the kind of competitiveness and the kind of the friendly rivalry you want between offense and defense. And it's friendly. It's a rivalry in that it's sort of an anything you can do, I can do better kind of thing. It's friendly in the fact that you love what the other side is doing and you love the energy and the success they're having because it raises your game. And I think that's something we've seen in the last 11 months. The recruiting operation at Notre Dame right now is really, really, really going at a high level. So certainly a lot of positives when it comes to defensive recruiting at Notre Dame and just overall recruiting at Notre Dame. So I want to dive a little bit into the film here. We're going to watch a little bit of film with Justyn Rhett, and then we're going to talk to oh, wow, it looks like Blake Wesley just hit a jumper. Notre Dame is going up, and they just beat Kentucky. What a weekend it is for Notre Dame. Notre Dame basketball, which is off to a rough start this year, just beat number 10 Kentucky. Of course, Marcus Freeman was at that game. We can just jump onto the hype and say that was the rate. But huge win for Notre Dame basketball, and of course a huge win for Notre Dame recruiting. So let's get back to this. Let's go over some film here real quick, and we're gonna look at Justyn Rhett as a player. So let's dive into this right now. The first thing you're going to notice when we're talking about Justyn Rhett as a player is you're going to notice size. He is a big, strong, physical kid. He plays boundary for Bishop Gorman a lot. The thing you're going to see is you're going to see a kid that's great with block destruction. You're going to see a kid that's got very strong hands. You're going to see a kid that's capable of really being physical at the point of attack, being really physical on the ball. A kid that comes downhill effectively. This is what I talk about block destruction, right? So he's pedal, slow pedal, plant, gets downhill, sees the blocker, shoots his hand, does not let this is a tight end. He does not let the tight end get into his body, just throws that big dude to the ground and then gets to the ball. He's a really good run defender. And obviously that's also very important when you look at being able to play the perimeter screen game, which is such a bigger part of the game nowadays. He just runs this next dude over. Watch this. This is physical. He's a very physical kid, loves to hit. He's got great length, right? And you can see him right here coming off the line, being physical at the line. The thing that I notice about him too is right now when I watch him play, I think Justyn is much better right now in off man. Okay, you see him coming up here in coverage. He's much better in off man because right now he's a guy that relies on his instincts. He's a guy that relies on his length, his physicality. He does a really good job using his hands correctly and appropriately when it comes to getting off blocks, but also being physical at the line. But he's got a lot of technique that needs work, in my opinion. And he's a guy that is going to need to work on his footwork. I think I've seen some summer camp film of him. So actually there was a camp. There's that physicality again. I just love this bully ball right here. I saw him at a camp this summer. I saw a bunch of clips from a camp this summer, and C.J. Williams was at the camp, who's a Notre Dame commit in the 2022 class. And C.J. just was eating people up. I mean, just really just dominating people at that camp. And Justyn was the only guy that I saw in probably 20-25 clips that could hang with him. This is an example here. So I want you to watch this. You can see so the point I'm getting to is when you watch him in man coverage, his transitions aren't really smooth and clean, right? Transitions are the point when you right there, that's a transition. Transition is when you kind of open and run, whether you're in a pedal, whether you're in press, and his transitions can be a little bit mechanical. Now, there's two reasons why that can be the case. And there's another example of a really mechanical transition that's a really tight transition, okay? And this is an example of it too. And that's not great for a guy that's going to be playing man coverage. So as an evaluator, you have to decide, is he not great in man coverage or is he not great with his transition? I'm going to get back to some more of this. Is he not great in transitions because he has tight hips? Or is he not great in transitions because he has footwork issues that cause him to not be able to open up and be smooth when you pedal? We're going to work through this film again. Because I want to just give you all a chance to see a little bit more of it. So we're just going to work through it again. Are those transitions tight because of footwork? So when you watch Justyn, he has a lot of times when he's transitioning, his feet either get like kind of too underneath him. And so when he tries to open and run, his feet are too narrow underneath him, which causes his transition to look tight. So Kenny Moore just said stiff hips. I don't believe he does have stiff hips, Kenny. And that's the point that I'm making is your transitions are going to look tight, which looks like you have tight hips when your footwork is not where it needs to be. Okay. So when I watch Justyn, I see a kid that at times has transition issues. When you pop in the film, you'll see a couple clips here where the transitions look clean. But then when you watch in some of the drill work, there's some drill work out there. Him working through agility drills and bag drills and change of direction. When you see him at some of the camps where he's just kind of out running, you see a lot cleaner transitions, a lot cleaner hip flexibility. And so what that tells me as an evaluator is and we talked about this yesterday with Brian, talking about linemen and knee bending versus waist bending. Is it a technique thing or is it a physical thing? Well, with Justyn, to me, I think a lot of it is a technique thing. He's never going to look, like super. I mean, Deion Sanders, flipping his hips, but he's a kid that I think has better transition ability than he has. But if he can improve on that, what does that mean for him? Well, that just means it just depends on what position you can play him at. And so for me, when you look at how he fits into the Notre Dame defense, number one, I think he's got the size, physicality, he's got the ball skills, the instincts to be a boundary corner. Right now, the question is can he be a good enough man cover guy to stay in the boundary? Then you look at other parts of his game, the physicality, the fact that he's so good at off coverage, his instincts, his ability to read routes in front of him, his ability to drive on routes, jump off balls, things like that. You see those things and you say, okay, that fits really well with the field position. And so I think those are the things that are going to ultimately determine where he's going to fit best in this defense is his transition ability right now more of a technique thing or a tight hip thing. I think it's more of a technique thing, and we'll find out over the next year because he's still a player that has not played a lot of high school football, again, because he did miss his sophomore season. So I like him. I think the only question I have is where is he going to fit in this whole thing? So that's kind of where I'm at. And then Brandon asked about wanting to know the 23 Notre Dame cornerback board. Where does he rank these guys? I'll have that out here after signing day, after the January signing day, or after the December signing day. I'll start focusing more and more on 2023. But this is a kid to me that I look at and say he's going to be a top 100 guy. I don't have him ranked as a top 50 guy. I don't think he's there yet for some of the reasons I mentioned. But I think he's definitely a top 100 guy and definitely there from an upside standpoint. Now, one of the questions I had about him before his junior season was his speed, because again, I only saw freshman film and I saw a little bit of camp. Well, one of the things Notre Dame loved about him is when he came to camp this summer, as I mentioned, he ran a 4.4. And then one of the things I've asked about with people is, and this is back to Kenny's point about the hips, is I see some things and I'm like, hey, what's going on here? Well, when I've talked to people at Notre Dame, they said when they put him through drills at camp, he was smooth. He was clean with his transitions, which again confirms what I think I see on film. To Kenny's point is I see a kid that has footwork issues, which cause him to be a little tighter. And, so that's something that I like. So let's talk a little bit about, and we're going to get to some of your questions here in a little bit, but I want to work through just a couple more things. You talk about what's next at cornerback. Okay. So Notre Dame would like to get at least one more corner in the 2023 class. If they do not sign Devin Moore, I think you could see a third guy, as long as one of those guys can be a bigger guy with some potential to play another position, which I think Justyn Rhett is. So it gives you some flexibility to recruit the other positions. There's two guys that the two guys the staff loves, which right now are guys that I consider long shots. Okay. The guys that I consider long shots that are elite players, in my opinion, are AJ Harris and Malik Muhammad. AJ Harris is from Alabama. For whatever reason, even though him and his family grew up Notre Dame fans, he's just kind of drifted away from Notre Dame. I don't think he views himself as a fit coming up and at Notre Dame. It just they've put in the effort. It's just he doesn't see himself as a fit. And then Malik Muhammad is a very good player. Now, the interesting thing there is the staff felt really good about where he was, where they were with him. They liked him. He'd been on campus a couple times. Like, it looked like it was really going really well. Then he drops a top 12, and Notre Dame's not in it for some reason. I don't know why. They don't know why at the time. They're still recruiting him, though, and they're hoping to get him back on campus and kind of get back in that group. But like I said, right now, those two guys are long shots. There's another guy that so it was kind of funny. I would talk to certain sources and I would ask about, hey, who's the guys you like? And I would mention some guys, and I would always leave off Christian Gray from St. Louis. And I would always immediately be reminded, like, you need to put Christian Gray on your list. And I said, oh, okay. And so I have learned not to do that anymore. So Christian Gray is another kid from DeSmet Jesuit in St. Louis. He's another of the St. Louis kids. I believe he's on campus this weekend. I was told he's supposed to be on campus this weekend. I have not confirmed that he's actually made it to campus this weekend. He's been on campus before. He's another kid. He's like ranked in like the top 150. He's about 5'11", 6 feet long. Can run. I really like his vertical speed. He's got much cleaner transitions than what you see from Justyn Rhett on film. He's a kid that I really like, and a kid that Notre Dame really, really likes. So that's a guy that I would definitely keep an eye on. I know Caleb Presley's a kid that they've kind of talked to a little bit. And then Ryan Yates is a guy the staff likes. Ryan Yates, the thing they like about him is he may be able to be a corner, but he could be a guy. He's a lot like Devin Moore that, maybe a corner, but could play safety. He's also teammates with Peyton Bowen at Denton Guyer in Texas. So they like that part of it too, because they love Peyton Bowen. And Peyton Bowen's a guy that likes Notre Dame a lot. So that's where kind of things stand. What's next? Now, the nice thing about getting Justyn Rhett this early is it gives Notre Dame an opportunity to really focus on sort of that next guy in the class. They can really narrow their search. They've got the guy in the class. I mean, honestly, at the end of the day, as long as everybody on the current roster is kind of sticking around and things like that, Notre Dame can get away with only signing one cornerback in this class if they feel they need to put the resources other places or they don't get the guys they want. I think they really want to get Christian Gray. I think that's the guy that they're going to really push for. I think they're going to try to get him in the class sooner rather than later. If they're able to do that, then they will just focus on the elite guys. I think you'll see them just kind of basically say, maybe we can get Malik or AJ and that's it. And then focus on safety and maybe take a third safety instead of a third corner. So I think if you're able to get Christian Gray into the class sooner rather than later, I think it gives them a much better vision and view of where they're going to be when it comes to recruiting the secondary. Because this is a big year, a big year when it comes to recruiting the secondary at Notre Dame. So big commitment today for Notre Dame. It's been a half an hour now, and it's a lot's happened. So Notre Dame has got a commitment from Justyn Rhett. Notre Dame has just beat Kentucky in basketball, so certainly a big day for Notre Dame. I was told that they stormed the court. A lot of recruits that were on campus today were there and were part of that, so that's going to be pretty exciting to see where things are there. So I've got a couple super chats we'll get through, and then we'll get to some of your questions. We're not gonna be super long tonight. I definitely appreciate the super chats because of the music that they were playing in there. I would imagine that we're going to get demonetized because of the music that CBS was playing in that video. It tends to always happen that way. It is what it is. So I definitely appreciate the super chats tonight. Let me get to these super chats here real quick. All right. We do have some. There we go. All right, David Colehouse, big pickup. Let's go Irish. As always, great coverage, Brian. Thank you for the super chat, David, and thank you for the kind words. I appreciate that very much. Michael Ryan, thanks for carrying this, Brian. You are welcome, Michael. Thanks for being with us, and thanks for the super chat. And then we'll go through some other questions here when I get through the super chats. K. Grant, hashtag 12 is coming. I believe people refer. He's asking that, so people are asking that would be title number 12. There's a lot of excitement about that, and I love it, absolutely love it. Brandon asks, thank you, Brandon. Love Rhett. Felt he was that one corner Notre Dame needed in 2023. Now go and pair him with any two-man combination of Yates, Muhammad, Gray, Caleb Presley, or Micah Tease. Micah Tease is a name I've seen thrown around there. I don't think that there's really much of a shot there. Now, with Oklahoma and everything going on, who knows what's going on there. But I don't think Micah Tease is a guy that Notre Dame's got a real great shot with. But at this point in time, I think, you kind of get this feeling that when you start having some success on Twitter, on Twitter, I just read somebody's thing. When it comes to recruiting, you start thinking like, hey, maybe we can go after some bigger guys. But that's the other thing too, Brandon, that I was talking about earlier is when you look at the success that they've had, now getting Justyn Rhett, getting Morrison, and getting Mickey in the 22, getting the 4 kids from 21, now that you got Rhett in the fold, you can be more aggressive. You know, you can say, hey, you know, right now we don't have a chance. We're not really in a great shot with AJ Harris or Micah Tease or Malik Muhammad, but we're okay. Let's just keep pushing. Let's keep pushing. Because if they say no, we're fine, right? That's what you look at it from a coach's standpoint. If they say no, we're fine. But if you go win, you know, but if they say yes, or if they keep talking to you, then you know you've got a great pickup. So certainly a big part there. All right, and okay, let's get back up here. Want to get some comments and questions. A lot of people fired up. Tyler's fired up tonight. Savage says, been waiting on this announcement all day long, like no joke. A lot of people fired up. 2023 class will be special. Defensive class is certainly off to a great start. I think at this point in time, there's going to need to be some momentum going with the offensive class. Now, that's going to be the interesting thing. Look, I don't think any of us are surprised that Notre Dame just picked up a big corner. I mean, they've been leading for Justyn Rhett since this summer. The deal was basically all but closed when he visited in October for the USC game. Then it was just kind of finally getting it. I mean, he didn't do a ton of visits after that because I think in his mind, you know, he's a big academics kid, and then everything that he liked about Notre Dame, he saw firsthand. He watches some smack USC around. I think that was pretty much a done deal. So this was going to happen, in my opinion, whether Marcus Freeman, like this wasn't something that happened because, you know, Brian Kelly's gone and Marcus Freeman's here. Freeman and Mike Mickens is the one that drove this commitment. I mean, you know, we talk about Marcus Freeman and the great job he's doing. Mike Mickens is the one that did this. Mike Mickens was out to see him 2 weeks ago. So while they're out going around and seeing 2022 kids, Mike Mickens was out there at Bishop Gorman. Didn't see him because, you know, you can't go visit the 2023 kids, but he was at Bishop Gorman making sure that Justyn and everybody at Bishop Gorman knew how important he was to Mike Mickens and this class. So that was a big thing. Now the question that I have now is, we're going to keep seeing Notre Dame recruit elite on defense. What kind of impact is he going to have on offense with Tommy Rees, right? So what assistance can he provide the offensive staff? I think for me, that's going to be the big question mark. And Tyler kind of hits the nail on the head. Just need Dante Moore and Carnell Tate to join in, and it's off from there. That's absolutely right. Let me get Matt Boer says best commitment since corner commitment since. So I like Justyn Rhett. I do. I think he's a top 100 kid. I think that there's some guys that as juniors I like better than him. I liked Benjamin Morrison better than him. I mean, you all know I think Benjamin Morrison's a really good football player. Ryan Barnes is comparable to him, to me, in my opinion. I really like Ryan Barnes. Now, from a recruiting ranking standpoint, if he stays where he is now with rivals, this will be the highest cornerback commit, I believe, of the last 12, 13 years. I think the last time they signed a cornerback ranked that high, probably have to go back to like Gary Gray, Rayshawn McNeil, Darren Walls, kind of that territory. T. Shepard is the next closest thing I think that they've had to that. And obviously that didn't last very long. So I think you'd have to go back to, they got Darren Walls and Rayshawn McNeil in 2006. They got Gary Gray in 2007. Robert Blant was part of the 2008 class. I'm trying to remember where Robert Blanton was ranked as a recruit. I believe he was kind of a top 150 guy. Maybe he was a top 100 guy. I thought he was a top 100 guy. And he ended up being a pretty good player at Notre Dame. But those are some of the better corners they've had. I think really the only highly ranked corner they got under Kelly that I can off the top of my head was T. Shepard. 2012, Devontae Neal was not considered a corner. Kavari Russell was not considered a corner. He was more of an athlete. They were recruiting him to play running back. He switched to corner. So not guys that necessarily landed at corner. Cole Luke was ranked like top 150. He wasn't like an elite guy. But they've got some good ones. But not the really like top ones. And I don't know if I'd put Justyn Rhett into that category yet. I think the upside is there, but he still has some work that his game still needs some work, but still very, very good commitment. You all know how I am when I break down film, just a little bit. I tend to be on the critical side and looking at the things that they need to improve upon and things along those regards. Garth Cassidy with super chat. Brian, what is the ideal amount of corners and safeties do you want for each position? I mean, Garth, it really depends. It depends on, I mean, there's a lot of factors that go into it. Okay. Number one, it depends on what are your roster needs, right? So each class is going to be a little bit different. Now, if you're looking at kind of where you want to be on your entire roster, again, it just depends on the type of players you have. So, for example, if you have a lot of corners that are multiple guys and guys that can play both corners, guys can move to safety, guys can move around. So like a Robert Blanton kind of type, a Ryan Barnes, just some of the Clarence Lewis, guys like that, then you're going to be in a situation where you can be more corner heavy in your class than you are safety heavy because you have guys can move around. If you have safeties that can come down and play nickel, safeties that can do those type of things, then you may be able to have a few more safeties. But ideally, you want to be at least 6 deep at safety. I think 6 is the number. And then if you can get 1 or 2, depending on how things go, you want to at least be there. And this is with the thought that the nickel is going to more often than not be a corner. And then a corner, you want to be at least 7. So that's 2 deep that's 2 deep at all 3 positions plus 1. So I think 7 to 8 is about really where you want to be at corner if you can swing it. And of course, it all has to fit into the 85. But I think so then you get kind of 13 to 14 DBs, which makes a lot of sense. And a defense is going to have 5 DBs on the field a lot. You're a solid 2 deep everywhere, and you're getting close to 3 deep on a lot of positions. But again, the more versatile guys you have, the more flexibility you have to maybe not take another DB position because you have guys can move around, which then gives you the resources to go use that position somewhere else. So I think that's obviously a part of it as well. Got a super chat here from Mike Sullivan. Thank you, Mike. Fired super chat out. Sorry, kids. Santa found out what could be an expensive habit. Love the show. That's a great first one, Mike. That is really, really good. I appreciate that very, very much. That's really good. Let's get back up here to some more questions, and then we'll wrap things up after we get through some questions. A lot of excited people here tonight. So people asking about the highest ranked player. And Alex, Gary Gray was ranked, I'm looking at it now, 78 by Rivals. Remember, there was no 247 Sports back then. There was just Scout and Rivals. Darren Walls was ranked number 58 or 51 by Rivals in the 2016 class. So that back to – it's funny. You kind of look at – we kind of talk about how Notre Dame can't recruit corners in certain positions. But back in the Charlie Weiss era, when you had a head coach that could really recruit and wanted to recruit, you did well. In a 2-year span, Notre Dame got Rashawn McNeil, Darren Walls, and Gary Gray in a 2-year span. From North Carolina, McNeil's from North Carolina, Gary Gray was from South Carolina, Darren Walls was from Pennsylvania. And they were all top 80 players. Darren Walls was 51, Rashawn McNeil was 74. They were in the same class. Then the next year you went out and got Gary Gray, who was ranked number 74. So Notre Dame has certainly shown the ability to get top corners in the past. It's just at that time they didn't have guys that could coach them up the way that you would like to and need to. But they certainly got talented guys. I mean, 2008, you got Robert Blanton in the 2008 class who ended up playing cornerback at Notre Dame. You got Jamor Slaughter, who was a safety, and Dan McCarthy, who were highly ranked recruits coming out of high school as well. So they were certainly able to have some success there. And then, of course, that's when Notre Dame started to kind of falter a little bit as a program, and the recruiting got a little bit tougher. But if you have a head coach that can recruit, you're going to be able to get top players. And I expect this continue to get better and better and better for Notre Dame when it comes to recruiting that position. Okay, let's get to some more here. Yeah, Navy won today, so we saw that. Try to get to some more of these. Well, you guys had a lot of comments in before the show even started. All right. A lot of talk about the hoops game. Okay. Matt H says, so would BJ Foster in the portal be an option to bridge between this year and possibly a good haul in 2023 class, or stick with Henderson and Watts? I mean, look, when it comes to the portal, Matt, I think the way you look at it is does this make our team better? I think that's the thing is, like, what you don't do is you don't bring a portal guy in who just may have more experience, but he's the same guy as what you have. Just coach your guys up. I think when you look for the portal, it's to fill a need that you don't have, or an experience thing that you don't have. So you've got two freshman quarterbacks basically. So you go get Jack Cohn. They didn't have a lot of confidence in their guards on this team, so they went and got Kane Madden, right? The cornerback experience on this year's team was shaky, so they went out and tried to get Caleb Evans. It didn't work out, but they went out and tried to get him. So I think when you look at the transfer portal, you say, hey, can this guy make us better? Is this guy going to come in and be significantly or be better than what we have? Because the problem you run into, Matt, is if you just start poaching the portal for guys that are kind of like what you have, one of two things could happen. Number one, if that guy's just kind of just like what you have, number one, he may get beat out, which then all of a sudden you're bringing in these transfers and they're not starting. And then it's going to be harder the next year to go get transfers that you need because it's like, well, they don't start them in Notre Dame. Number two is that guy's not significantly better than the other guys, but he's more experienced. And so you start him. And now the players on the team, and from a recruiting standpoint, you say, hey, look, they just go out and get transfers and just put the transfers in there to replace you. Then you kind of lose your locker room a little bit because you're just going out and getting these outsiders. So you got to be real careful that if you bring in a guy from the outside, a transfer, he's got to be better because the one thing about players is they will recognize when somebody's really good. If you bring in a safety and it's like, I mean, the players will know like, yeah, this guy's really good, then they'll be more accepting of that type of incoming player. That, just like with freshmen, some guys, like, you play a freshman over me, you promise him playing time and you lose the locker room because that guy's not that good and you did promise him playing time. But when a guy like Kyle Hamilton steps on the field or a guy like Michael Mayer steps on the field and he's taking playing time away, people are like, yeah, I get it. That guy's really good. So you got to be real careful. With BJ Foster specifically, I didn't watch enough of BJ. I know he was a really top recruit. I didn't watch enough of BJ to be able to say he would be that kind of guy that's just better. If he's just better, then look at him. If he's not just better, then I wouldn't do it. I'd coach up the guys you have. You've got Ramon, you got Watts, you can bring back DJ Brown, you can bring back Houston Griffith, develop Justin Walters and Kerry G. You've got KJ Wallace has more time too. So unless he's a definite improvement over what you have, I wouldn't look at him. So I'm not saying he's not. I'm saying I haven't seen enough of him. So I'm just kind of telling you how I look at it, just in general, for how I personally look at recruits. So the other thing too is I get real nervous about guys that were highly ranked recruits that transfer, because number one, you're like, why are you transferring? Number two, you're not transferring from a situation where it wasn't like they just hired a new coach, right? Like, it went through a year. Things didn't really go well. And he's leaving a defense that's just not good. He's also draft eligible. So I would ask then, why is he transferring and not going to the draft? I believe BJ Foster's draft eligible. Let me just check that real quick. I don't want to speak out of turn here. I want to just make sure that I'm accurate. Yeah, he's a 2018 player, so he's a safety. If he was a significant improvement over what they had, why wouldn't he just go pro? So there's a lot of things you can look into that make me a little nervous. But he's a guy that has the length, and he's got a guy that has the reputation to say he's at least worth a look. So I'd at least take a look. But I would always be a little skeptical in situations like that. I think the guys you really want to look for are maybe some of the smaller school guys that were really good that now want a chance at the big stage. And to me, those are kind of guys that I would take a real strong look at. Okay. Let's some more questions here. Tyler asked, Brian, what sort of workouts do the coaches put players through at camp? Can't just be all one-on-one. So you asked this earlier, Tyler, and I kind of hinted about it, but I'll just answer it really quickly. You'll usually do testing, 40-time, shuttle, vertical jump. They'll also do agility drills, like back pedal drills. They'll do change of direction drills. They'll do like mirror drills. The coach will kind of take a ball, pointing this way, pointing that way, and you just want to see their turn, but also see their instincts. Do they anticipate it, or do they react to the ball? That's something you see, because a lot of guys will kind of think like, you don't just do the same. You don't get into a rhythm as a coach because you're not teaching them anything. You get them to drop, and then you change up the cadence on when you move them, because you don't want them to be jumping. You want them to be reactive. And so that's something that you work on. You'll do a straight line back pedal with DBs and athletes like linebacker, safeties, and DBs. Because the reason is you want to see a guy. So you take you'll start on the sideline. You kind of work across the field, right? And so what you'll do is you'll have a guy backpedal and you want him to flip his hips. You'll tell him to change his, flip his hips and turn this way, turn that way, right? Because you want to see his ability to flip his hips. The other thing you can do is you get a seat on the line. So like, I'll give you an example. Being at the Notre Dame Pro Day after the 2018 season, and you had Drew Tranquill and Tavon Coney both doing this, and the NFL scouts put them through that drill. And Drew is backpedaling. He's just flipping his hips and just clean but he's staying right on the line. Well, with Tavon, when he would flip his hips, it would drag him that direction. And then he'd flip his hips and it'd drag him. So it turns into a zigzag. You don't want a zigzag on a backpedal drill like that. And what that tells you is, and the reason they do it on the line is because you can really evaluate how much that turn is dragging him. Because when a guy has tight hips, that turn is going to drag him. It tells me he's got tight hips. He can't stay on that tight line. Because here's the thing. If I'm backpedaling in coverage and I got to turn my hips and that turn drags me, you just got separation on me when you make your break. You want a guy that can stay clean and stay on that line because that's the kind of guy. And that's why Drew Tranquill, even though his production wasn't where Tavon Coney's was a much higher draft pick, and Tavon wasn't even drafted. Now, I believe if Tavon didn't have some off-the-field things, he may have been drafted late, like 6th, 7th round. But, it's also why Drew Tranquill's been a much better NFL player than Tavon, because he's a much, much better athlete. And so those are the kind of drills. You're just gauging, how does he run? How does he move? What kind of change of direction does he have? What kind of feet does he have? What kind of explosiveness does he have? Those are the things that you're looking for. And when you see those things, you see those things up close and personal, you have a much better sense of where they are with those type of things. Okay. Get down here. So you got it's kind of funny going through these chats, kind of looking back through them. You can kind of see, oh, that must have been when he committed, because you start seeing people get fired up. So, and this is the thing that I was talking about earlier. John Oglesby said, Mike Sullivan said about Marcus Freeman. Coach is getting a lot of love, but what I want Notre Dame fans to understand is obviously Coach Freeman's done a great job, but he doesn't recruit every single kid. This Justyn Rhett was recruited primarily by Mike Mickens. Now, of course, Marcus Freeman played a big role in that, but he was the guy that was recruited by Coach Mickens. And so obviously that's a big part of this as well. So get down here, last couple questions before we get out of here. Got a couple super chats here. You got Brandon, I got yours. Got Garth. Got Mike's. Okay, here we go. Casa Hodge, do you think Devin Moore will commit back to Notre Dame? Love the show. Thank you for that question, Mark. That question, Casa, and I appreciate the kind words. I don't know is the answer, okay? Because I don't know what's going to happen. Notre Dame staff is still working. If you were to ask me today, what do I think is going to happen? Today, I would say I think he's going to sign with Florida. That's where things kind of look now. Notre Dame went in-house with him this week. It went well. They feel like they made a good pitch. They're going to continue to try to grind. But he visited Florida this weekend. Florida still feels good about where they are. Talked to some people on the Notre Dame side that aren't coaches, and they have a little bit of a different sense of where things are. And they're not quite as optimistic. So as of today, I would say no. I don't think he commits back to Notre Dame. But I can tell you this. There's 4 days left before 3 days left before signing day. Mike Mickens, Marcus Freeman, Chris O'Leary, Chad Bowden, the entire staff, they're not giving up on Devin Moore. And the rest of the commits are not giving up on Devin Moore. Will it end up working in the end? We'll find out. Things can change in 3 days, but that's where I'm at right now. So it's kind of DMND 13. Do you think Dante Moore committing would influence Cardinal more, or Cardinal committing would influence Dante more? It seems they know each other and want to play together. I've always kind of felt quarterbacks kind of do their own thing. And quarterbacks tend to be real methodical and thoughtful and put a lot of thought into it. Now, what I think could happen is if Dante Moore is really, truly torn and Cardinal Tate picks a school that he is torn between, it could influence him in sort of the decision. But if he's leaning towards this school and Cardinal Tate commits to that school, it's not going to cause Dante to go over there. I could see that happening with Cardinal Tate, though. I could see a scenario where Cardinal Tate is leaning towards one school, but because Dante commits, he goes to the other. Because you really, as a receiver, you got to really make sure that you trust your core. Like a quarterback can have that sense of, hey, look, I think I can go make these receivers better, right? I can do this thing, I can do that, and I can make these guys better. When you're a receiver, you're kind of you're kind of at the mercy of who your quarterback is. You could be a great player, but if you don't have a quarterback that can get you the ball, it won't matter. So it's not to say that Carnell is more persuadable than Dante. It's the nature of the position is more of what I'm referring to. And I think that's kind of true across the board. So, and then Garth Cassidy said, Brian sent you a topic on the message board. If you're talking about that offensive line thing, I did see that earlier, but I haven't had a chance to get quite to that yet. So certainly we'll get to that here very, very soon. And I forgot to publish my stories on those commitments. See, I got so wrapped up in the chat that I completely forgot to publish my stories about this commitment. So that's a bummer, but they're published now. So we're all good. All right. And then get down here. Matty K55, Brian, with the additions of Gabera and Ford at D-line and the possible returns of Foskey and MTA and Jason A, our D-line could go 11 deep. Possibly. Is that feasible number to be playing at D-line? No, that's going to be a little tough. That's a lot of guys. I don't know if you can play 11 consistently. Now, what I'll say is there are going to be games where you can do that. And so, like, through the course of this, you can play 11. You can do necessarily play 11 with any kind of consistency game after game after game, especially when you have veterans like Notre Dame's going to have. I mean, you're not going to play Isaiah Foskey 30 snaps a game, right? You're not going to do something like that. So I think that 11 is a little bit too much week after week after week, but you can get that many guys going throughout the year. 11 is tough to do consistently. Joseph Barrett asked, Brian, any thoughts on Urban Meyer possibly not finishing the season in Jacksonville? Honestly, Joseph, I don't really pay attention to the NFL, and I definitely don't pay attention to Urban Meyer. And I'm not surprised that mature adults and professionals are not digging his shtick. Irishman 714. Great pickup by the Irish. Do you think the emergence of the defensive front the last 3-4 years is helping bring in defensive backs, or is it just focused by the coaches to upgrade talent? I think Notre Dame has recruited DB relatively well most years. I think the development's been kind of the issue more than anything. I think that's kind of the thing. Now, as far as getting the top guys, I think that will help. That will certainly help, along with having coaches and those type of things. Garth Cassidy with another super chat. Thank you, Garth. When recruits come in, do they actually take actual height weight? Yes, they do. They do. Yes. Yep, they do. And I believe that is it. So we are going to wrap it up there. I don't want to keep y'all too late. I know we kind of had a little bit of a late show tonight, but I want to thank everybody for joining. Obviously, big pickup for Notre Dame tonight, getting Justyn Rhett, just the 7th commitment of the 2023 class. Another big-time defensive recruit. That gives them 5 defensive recruits in this class. 4 of those 5 are ranked as top 50 recruits by at least one service. So off to a tremendous, tremendous start on defense for Notre Dame. So before you leave, hit the like button. Hit the subscribe button if you have not already done so. Hit the notification bell so that you know when we have shows coming out. Check out irishbreakdown.com. Sign up for the message boards. We're about 5 people. So I want to tell you all something. I'm excited about this. If you're still here, appreciate you listening. My goal was to reach 1,000 subscribers for our message board by the time the 2022 season started. We are about 5 people away from getting to that now in December. So about 8 months ahead of schedule, and that's because of y'all. I love it. You all rock. The growth has been a ton of fun, and it's because of you guys. So we do the shows, but you got to show up, and you all have shown up and have really created a tremendous, tremendous community. Chris F. said I missed his super chat. Chris, let me find it. Chris F., who's the next commitment? Thank you, Chris. Right now, I don't know who that next commitment is going to be, Chris. I think that if I had to guess, it's going to be a 2023 kid. I know there's a couple defensive players that the Notre Dame staff is pushing for. Samuel Mpemba is a guy that the staff has been pushing for. He had said, we had an article about this back in, I think it was October, maybe early November. No, it was in November where John Garcia of SI All-American went down and talked to Samuel, and he said he wanted to kind of decide before the end of the year he was going to take some more visits. I don't know if those visits gave him any clarity on what he wants to do, and if he's still planning on staying on his schedule. But Notre Dame was in a really good position with him then. I don't know if they are still – I mean, we'll see if they're still there. But if he decides soon, he may be a kid in the option. I think Christian Gray is a kid the staff is making a push for. But I think Tommy Rees and his staff are trying to push hard to get on the board too. They're making a lot of moves on 2023 kids, running backs, receivers, offensive line, quarterback is obviously. So I think we could see a surprise. But there isn't anybody right now, Chris, and I thank you for your super chat. There isn't anybody right now that I think that they are good. And I got two more. So we got two more super chats before we leave. That's why I love you guys. So this is awesome. Kay Grant, sign up for the message boards. It's worth it. I agree with you, Kay Grant. I appreciate you, Carrie, very, very much. And that's what he meant, obviously. Blaine Tiller says, should do a free hat giveaway for the first 1,000 subs on the board, just a random. So here's the problem with that. Do you know how much it would cost me to give 1,000 hats? The hats cost more than the message board. So we did a thing where we had the Pick'em League we had. So if you finish first, second, or third, if you finish first, you got a free year membership plus a hat plus a shirt. If you finish second, you got a hat and a shirt. Finish third, you just got a hat or a shirt. And so I had two people finish second, the guys Peter's picks, and then the other person, so I'm trying to think, it was Foskey, something Foskey in it, and Crazy Like a Foskey. And I need to have them contact me because they were supposed to they didn't leave their message, they didn't leave their thing. So and so now are you saying people are saying that maybe you're saying just one hat, or you said just one hat? Yeah, I kind of feel like, I don't know how I feel about that. Now what we do have is we have a special going on for subscribers to the message board where we have a Christmas special just for Irish Breakdown subscribers. You get 25% off your whole purchase. So that's there for everybody. And I think that would make a lot more sense than that. Not a lot more sense, but just more I'm comfortable with there. So appreciate it. The thought though, Blaine, and I know Blaine obviously has already signed up, so he wouldn't be responsible for, he wouldn't be able to get that hat. So it's just looking out for other people. So I appreciate it. Nick Baker, can you speak of the impact of Elko to Duke? I like that hire. I do. Number one, I think Mike Elko is a guy that understands how to recruit to academic schools. Number one, he was at Notre Dame for a year, did really well. He was at Wake Forest, which has not like Notre Dame type of academic standards, but it's a good school that you got to have some academic prowess to get into. And he's a Penn guy. He played at Penn. So he obviously has some academic prowess. So I think he'll know how to recruit there. I think he's a really good recruiter. I think he's a much better recruiter than Clark Lee. If I had to bet, I'd bet that Mike Elko has more success at Duke than Clark Lee does at Vanderbilt. Number one, because I think he's a better recruiter. Number two, competition isn't as challenging as what Clark Lee has to face. So I think it's a smart hire. His teams will be energetic. They'll play with fire, I believe. He'll recruit well. It's just at the end of the day, it's going to come down to just whether or not he's able to put the right staff together. I think that's going to be the big key is, can he hire the right staff? And that's true for any coach. That's going to be true for Marcus Freeman. What kind of staff can he finish up with? And so that's what I'm looking for. Now that is going to be it. That is going to be it. So thanks everybody for staying with us. Casa Hodge just signed up. So thank you for that. That is awesome. I appreciate you very, very much. So we're getting much, much, much closer to where things are. So definitely you're going to enjoy it. You're going to enjoy being part of this crew. It's going to be a lot of fun. We've really grown a great crowd at Irish Breakdown, and I cannot enjoy it. It says, when do you expect the crystal ball for Cornell or Dante? I have no clue. I don't do crystal balls. I don't put a lot of stock in crystal balls. So that's not my thing. So anyway, everybody have a great rest of your night. We will be back with you on Monday at our normal time, 12:30. I am looking into on signing day, kind of having just a long running show all day where I may take like a break and put like a screen up and say, hey, we'll be back in 30 minutes I'm going to try to get some people on and different guests and things like that. And we'll announce who signed and all that kind of stuff. I'm not quite sure logistically if we're going to be able to play it off or to pull it off, but we're going to try. But we're definitely going to have something on signing day. We'll probably have a couple somethings. The other option is to have maybe 2 or 3 different shows throughout the day. We'll see what we end up deciding to do. Just depends on people's schedules and making that kind of stuff work. So anyway, have a great rest of your night, everybody. big pickup for Notre Dame, big hoops win for Notre Dame. Just a great, great week all around for Notre Dame and for Irish Breakdown. So thanks for joining me. We'll talk to you again very, very soon.